guys, welcome. This is Beth with Vicinity. I just wanted to take a moment before I opened it up to Randy to say hello and thank you for joining our second Brewed for You webinar. This session is going to be recorded, and once the recording is completed, we will send it out to all participants. And if you have any questions during the webinar, go ahead and place them in the chat, and we can get to those towards the end. Randy, I'll hand it off to you.
Great. Thanks, Beth. Appreciate that. Should be sharing my screen, I think. Can somebody tell me if you're seeing my screen?
No, I don't see it.
I don't see it yet either.
Right. User error, I'm certain.
There we go.
Better. Okay, now we're seeing everything. Good to go. Let's get that guy closed. All right, great. So today what we're going to do is we're going to talk about some functionality in the application that has been in the application for a long time, but has been built upon fairly recently in the last year or so. And it's about component lot attributes. And I'm going to take a little bit of time talking about an attribute for those people that don't use them. It'll make more sense in about 5-10 minutes. And then what we could do with that transactionally for some lot type data. So we're gonna go through the attribute piece, and then we're going to show how we can use it within the application to kind of help breweries do certain tasks. So first off, an attribute is, think of it as a user-defined field. You can create as many attributes as you want for an item. It's like an inventory item or a formula, etc. And so if you're doing let's say TTB, for example, you're going to see certain areas for the old Brewer's Report of Operations piece where you can look at quantities used by types of ingredients, or maybe you're using it for TTB having to do with you're using attributes to put values in certain columns on the TTB. So you're basically earmarking an inventory item or a formula with a certain piece of data that you're interested in. So in this case, I might be marking a raw material, a hops item, as a hops ingredient, just as a hypothetical example of a attribute. You can really use attributes for anything, things like fill levels or number of bottles in a case, or any piece of data you want to track. And just to kind of finish this piece out, attributes can be all kinds of different types of data. A tag just means it's like a checkbox, yes, versus a yes, no, versus a text. Text allows us to key either a finite number of characters or really unlimited in nature. So you could write a small novel as an attribute. It's, of course, a numeric value, a range from this number to this number, a date, and a value set. So basically, you're just setting up user-defined fields that can be used in components as well as formulas. And this is the master setup to do that. If I wanted to go add a new one, all I do is I come in and give it the new attribute ID, and then I have my cursor where I want to put it, and either I could say insert child, which it would add underneath. Let me just go ahead and do that. I'll create one called Randy, and it could be a child under this parent, or it could be a sibling, so brother, sister, so it would be at the same level. That's how you add an attribute. Most likely you've got attributes in your system already. If you don't, feel free to reach out to us and we'll kind of walk you through that setup again. So that's kind of the base building place that, that we're going to start from, is the setup of an attribute. Now, once an attribute is set up, you can then tell the inventory item or formula that you want to use that attribute, or that it is a relevant attribute for that item. So in this case, going back to my hops item, I have an attribute out there called hops, and I'm just checking it. This gives me a way to categorize inventory items together. In this case, I'm categorizing all of my hops through this attribute called hops. I could get a list of all components that have that hops attribute to it. Now, we use attributes for a lot of different things, largely for reporting. So if there's a certain piece of information that we don't have a field for, our group will have you set up an attribute, and then we can use that in a report on a brew log, fermentation log, etc. So in the past, we were doing things like times and temperatures and things like that. Our system has progressed beyond that for a whole different scenario, but it is factual data about a inventory item or a formula. In other words, it doesn't vary. It is what it is. this is a hops and it will never be a malt, that type of scenario. And that's really worked really well for us for a long time to be able to generate reports about an inventory item or a formula. Now, we're going to take it one step further and say one of the challenges that existed is that data I'd like to track isn't always the same for the item. It changes over time, or let's just say by lot. So each lot that comes in might have a different actual attribute value. Now, we are starting to get really close to a QC test when we have this conversation, but we're not talking about a QC test. We're really talking about something that maybe you pick up off a C of A, or maybe it's a visual observation, but it does change on a lot-by-lot basis. And so we can take that attribute that we just set up. So I'm going to come down and work with one I've got here. So we've got lot attributes down here. By the way, that name is just for my organization. The term lot attributes has no real meaning in this, just grouping them together. And so I've got two lot attributes that I'd like to discuss. One's called alpha acids, another is a use by date. The idea behind this is I'm wanting to tell the system that I've got a factual value associated with it. You know, I'm looking for a value somewhere between 75 and 95. This looks a little weird because my expectancy is 60, but I can have a numeric value. I'm expecting it to equal 60 or maybe a range. I can even use all these other fields, text values and dates and things like that. But in this case, what I'm talking about is I've got a numeric value here of 60 units. That is my par, that's my bogey. However, I know that with each lot coming in, it may differ from this value. And what I'm doing now is I'm saying I want to enable that lot attribute value. I want that to be able to be to have data entered on a lot by lot basis. And so this checkbox basically just turns that on or turns that off. If it's on, it gives me the ability to record the data in another screen I'm going to show you in a second. Same concept here. I've got a use by date. It's a date value, and I'm basically making it available for the component lot screen. Now, there are some values that you're going to want quality to enter the results. You're going to want, in some scenarios, that data is going to come through the quality department while you're entering QC results, and you might want to enter that value in quality sample entry. We support that as well. I'm going to show you both ways to enter data in just a minute. But if I want to do that, if I want quality to be able to enter this data, I need to expose it like I'm showing here, enable attribute on component lots, and tie it to a specific test. So in my demo environment, I have a QC value out here that I've set up, and I want, if I enter that value in the AAU test, it will write back to the lot attribute for me automatically. We'll come back and visit this in just a second, but know that there's a connection now between the lot attribute and a QC test. If I enter the QC test, it'll automatically update the lot attribute. And I'll talk a little bit more about set as the sizing attribute in just a few moments, because we can have some impact on a batch ticket. So we take it a little bit further than just, say, entering the data. Okay, so let's see this a little bit more in action. Like now what I want to do is I want to enter an attribute value, in this case, the alpha acid value for a lot. That's kind of where I'm headed with this. So let me come over to component lot data. It's stored under product development. If you don't see it, let us know. You can actually go set it yourself, but it's actually under security. So you can go under the user class and activate that screen. If you have any problem doing that, let us know. We're happy to walk you through it. Sorry about that. So I am now on a screen that allows me to enter any lot data that any lot attributes that I've defined. All that definition we did, we set up an alpha acid value as well as a use by date. And now I've gotten a lot in and I'm wanting to enter that data. In this scenario, I want to do it without QC entry. So maybe I'm not running QC. I can come right to the screen and enter that value so I don't have to fire up QC to be able to do what we're talking about. So I've got a hops item, and I'm just going to go ahead and say, Randy, 10 as my lot number. I have a couple choices here. I probably should have looked at it a little different way. I can do a lookup here. You're going to see all your lots. You probably would have expected that. I can pick up that lot and enter the value. know that I could also key in my own value. So my point here that I was headed to was that I don't actually have to have lot tracking turned on to make this work. So for all of you out there who are still, are waiting to turn on raw material lots, et cetera, you can still use this functionality. I just manually typed in a lot number, or I could select it from the lot selection screen. Either way, I end up in the exact same place. Now what it's looking at is it's showing me all of those attributes that we said expose or make available on the component lot data screen. So in this case, I can enter my value of, say, 62. Typically, I'm going to take that off of a C of A or something like that. And then here, I'm choosing to use this use by date so that I could actually report the last time I can put that hops into a process. The whole idea here is just helping me keep an idea of this lot information and keep me from putting something in after a point in which I would want it to go into the batch. It may not be the expiration date, but you could also do the same function with the lot expiration date. Just letting you know that's out there to be done. That's all there is to entering component lot data. I'm going to talk about what you can do with that in just a second, but I want to show you the alternate way to enter this data. So that's all I got to do to enter that, the component lot, the component and the lot number, and now I can enter those values. So the second way to do that would be through component sample entry. For those that are running QC, this is probably old hat to you. It's component lot. Now I can put in or select my lot number. Let's just go ahead and pick one that I've got out there. This is that QC test that we tied to that lot attribute. So when I enter a value here of, say, 63 as an example, I can tell at this moment it's just the QC test, but I can also tell the system to update the lot attribute at the same time. So in this scenario, all of this data is coming into somebody entering quality sample entry. Instead of having to go back to component lot data, that screen we were just on, I can do it in quality sample entry and it'll push it to that data. So let's go ahead and just enter that, save it, and that's all I really need to do. It has now updated my lot attribute data, and it is VBO1, so we can go take a look at that. And component lot data. Oops. And lot number 1. And there's your 63. So you can enter this data either directly in this screen, or you can enter it through component sample entry. Now, let's talk a little bit about what you can do with this data after this. Yep. One of the areas for this is just reporting. We just showed it, but in batch entry, we can also do a little bit more with this. Let me pull up my brew log that I've already got out here. Here we go. This works. As I'm entering data into batch entry, down to my kettle, and there's my hops right here. As I'm entering this data, I can pull up my lot bin button. What I just did so far is nothing new to what you're used to. What you're not used to seeing are these columns. These are those attribute values that we've entered the data against that lot. Remember, I entered the 63 in component sample entry. It's now being shown here. Of course, let me pause a second. Of course, what you're seeing right now does require lot traceability turned on for that raw material. Okay, end of that statement. That raw material lot's on. I'm now able to see all of these lots, and I can see those values. The 63 is my actual value. The 60 is my standard, my par. And what we're able to do here is, if you want to configure the system to do this, it will look at this line item and say, you know, there is more alpha acid content than normal. So what I want to do is adjust the quantity that I'm going to be using from 6.5 pounds to some other number. The number would be the difference in those from a percentage perspective. And what the system just did is it said, this is the quantity that I selected. I didn't mean all of them, sorry, that's my bad. Here, all right, get it off there. Expecting to get that quantity required. weird. Let me do this. At him, quantity required. Oh, 6.5. Did it automatically for me. Let me show what it's doing behind the scenes. So here, the system is taking, first off, a different lot. So it's taking basically double. Makes my math easier now that I'm looking at it. It needs an effective quantity of 6.5. That's what's in the formula, i.e. the batch. But because it's got such a low alpha acid value, I need to put in this case, double what it was. And so that's how that worked. If I take that out and say I actually want to use this lot, I can go the same route. I got to figure out what's going on there. But it'll then select that lot, and there it goes, and tell me how much quantity I actually need to put in to get that effective quantity out. So that's the application, one application of the lot attributes as it relates to altering the batch ticket. I think most of the breweries are doing this anyway. May not be in a system or being done, calculated for you, but this was one of the main reasons we added the batch entry part of it to be able to affect or alter this particular line item. Know that it could also be more just visual or just data to be observing. So if my use dates are here, I may choose to not use the lot that's really close, or maybe do use a lot that's really close to my use by date. So it just kind of helps me get information without having to really go anywhere else to see that. So we talked about setting up an attribute, tying that attribute to making it available in the component lot data, and then entering component lot data either manually on the screen or through quality sample entry. And then finally, how you can see it in batch entry to either select lots or adjust the batch or even just give you information about each lot that you could pick from. Finally, one other area I wanted to just talk about is all of this information has now been made available in Vicinity View. So I've actually got a favorite already set up out here for component lots. Basically, it's under the product development, components, component lot attributes. This is new in that it got added with the past release. So if it's not there, just check the version that you're on if you're an on-premise user, and just make sure you get the latest update, and that'll be there automatically. So from there, I'm just basically seeing the records that we've got. So in this case, I've got hops. Those are the lots that I've got sitting out here with lot component lot data associated with it. And in this case, I've just created my my view so I can see certain pieces of information that I want. We've exposed lots of columns there. If we're missing something, let us know, and we can help with that. But the whole idea here is that you're going to be able to see that lot data in a single place, but I'm also able now to expand out any data that I want to track about a lot, whether I go through QC or whether I don't. So that's basically the functionality of component lot. I'm going to pause here and kind of see if somebody's got any questions. I think if there are any, they're going to be queued up, I guess. And if you can fire one at me, that would be great.
We don't currently have any questions in the chat, but if you do have a question, then drop them in, and we are happy to answer them.
Or you're going to hear me sing.
And we know we don't want that.
Truth.
If anyone has any questions and can't find the chat box, you are welcome to unmute and ask a question as well.
Maybe I'm too good.
I think you just gave them all the information that they needed, and they don't have any questions. Well, I'll just take the time again to say thank you for joining. I appreciate it. And as I said in the beginning, this was recorded, so we will make sure we get this recording sent out to the participants once it's completed. Thank you all and have a great afternoon.